Guys, thank you very much. And by the way, I agree with Lieutenant Governor. You need to be vegetarian, and the Michigan's on the rebound. Thank you. I want to introduce, I was given the opportunity to chair the FinTech conference for TiECon this year. And we're thinking long and hard about who is the most avant-garde person in the technology in this area. And it came up, the name promptly came up, Vijay. Vijay is a friend. He's a devoted husband and a great dad. I know them because I know their kids very well as well. And he's also a leader in the technology space. I've known him for years now. And he's had various senior management roles with Ernst & Young, Headstrong, Ford, and now TD Ameritrade. If you look at these companies that he's had, it's ranging from consulting, automotive, and now into financial services. So I call him an entrepreneur. He creates companies within companies. So from that perspective, I thought it was a great opportunity to get him on stage and pick his brain on what's out there, what's new. Last year, he announced that they were buying Scottrade for $5 billion. This year, it has to be a new company with more than $10 billion, of course, Vijay. So I'd like to welcome him on the stage. Please give a big round of applause to Vijay for our grand keynote speaker.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out to the TiE event today. And I can hear the food clanking in the background, so I think it's Suresh and I who stand between you and dinner tonight. So we'll try to make it as interactive as possible. But, you know, I'm the CIO of TD Ameritrade, and just to give you a little bit of intro and background to that, I lead all technology for TD Ameritrade, which is one of the largest online brokerages in the United States. And really this year, you know, we went through a process of understanding, you know, what our mission is for our clients, and really it's to fuel the lives of investors through education, new capabilities. So, you know, we've been talking about health and we've been talking about productivity. Financial health is something that's incredibly important to people and their lives. And so, you know, I feel really fulfilled in the purpose of being able to leverage technology to fuel the lives of our investors and really help them grow their financial health. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm also going to talk about, you know, what's changing right now. Let's see if we can get this. Oh. Let's see. All right, good. So my topic today is going to be about driving disruption through technology innovation. Let's see if I can get this. Oh, there we go. So I have only a few short slides, but you know, I thought it's really important as an entrepreneur, which is the term Vineet used, to really talk about what's going on right now for larger companies like ourselves. I think all of you heard I was with Ford Motor Company, which is a much larger company, over $130 billion in annual revenues. I'm with a company, TD Ameritrade right now, which is over $5 billion in annual revenues, which we just acquired Scottrade through. But the main thing that I'm really discovering and I'm really becoming an advocate for is companies really need to begin to think differently. And I've thought about this whole notion of the fact that the world is continually evolving and the whole mantra of change or die is becoming the new corporate mantra. And I think all of us who are in large corporations need to internalize that. And I think those of you who are starting up new companies, that's where your opportunity lies, right? So if you look at throughout the course of humanity, you have continued evolution of species, you have species that die off, new species that start. And at the end of the day, this quote from Charles Darwin resonates so well for me. It's not the strongest of species that survive, but the ones that are most responsive to change. So if you look at a few facts, and you look at the companies that were in the S&P 500, the average life of a company in the S&P 500 continues to decline. Okay, fact number one. Number two, Companies that didn't even exist when I was born, which was in 1973, have large, enormous market caps to more traditional companies, right? So you look Google, which one could argue is an information services provider, and Reuters, which is an information services provider. One has acquired a lot of different companies, produces a lot of content, and one that aggregates content tenfold in terms of market capitalization. Facebook versus Time Warner. Time Warner has cable, it's got all kinds of media enterprises. It acquired AOL for a while, which one could say was a messaging company. I remember when I used Facebook messaging communities, and it is almost triple what Time Warner is in terms of market capitalization. And Airbnb, which is arguably not even a hotel chain, hasn't even IPO, has a $31 valuation, $31 billion valuation compared to Marriott, which is at $41 billion. So you look at the rapid change that's happening. So 3 examples where this crystallizes itself that I really took out is, number one, digital cameras, right? So, I remember when I was in the early 2000s, we were talking about songs where you're shaking it like a Polaroid picture. Our kids don't even know what Polaroid is, right? They don't know what it means. When I said, oh, do you remember when you used to take photos and shake them in the air? They don't even know what that means. Similarly, retailers. Many of us who grew up in this country in the 70s and 80s, we remember going to Macy's during Christmas time and seeing Santa Claus at Macy's and things like that. The rapid decline of retailers is absolutely startling. If you think about JCPenney's, if you think about Macy's, if you think about Sears, which was iconic, where I got all my childhood pretzels from, you see rapid decline at the hands of Amazon because millennials fundamentally think it's easier to just shop online. I fundamentally think it's easier to shop online. So, the rapid changes are continually occurring. And then finally, my favorite, right, which is the cord-cutting phenomenon, which is originally reserved for people who are off the grid, who wanted digital antennas, is becoming pervasive. Nobody wants to wait for the cable guy anymore. So do it yourself. Get your internet, get a streaming stick, subscribe to Hulu or Netflix or Sling TV, right? And if you look 5 years down the road and you look at the technologies around networking wireless, the changes are going to be startling in terms of TV on demand, which is something that's amazing. So it is happening. So if you haven't taken note of the fact that it's happening, it's absolutely happening. Oh, let's see. Figure out how to go. Next slide. Okay. So what's driving this disruption? So there are 3 major drivers that I think are most driving this disruption. Number one is speed of change in technology. So if you look over 3 different decades, 1850 to 1900, 1900 to 1950, and then 1950 to 2000, and 2000 to 2020. And you look at the major inventions, right? So the foundational technologies in each of those different times have served as catalysts for future half-decade shifts. But as time goes forward, what you're seeing is that the speed of different things continues to accelerate and accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. So you look at what's happened over the last 20 years. Everything from the internet to everything, iPhone, iPad, iWatch, whatever you want to call it, streaming TV, genetic editing, electric cars, biometric security, immunotherapy, artificial intelligence, Alexa, you could keep naming more and more of it. But look at how fast that's happening. And that's not going to slow down. So if you look from 2020 to 2050, what's going to happen then? It's only going to get faster. The second thing is something that I'm very, very passionate about, which is linear thinking at large corporations. So I own an electric car, and I'm very passionate about it because it's not actually a car. It's basically software with electronics around it. And I get an update, every few weeks, and I'm very, very excited about my update. And I came from an automaker, Ford, and when I talked about my Tesla to my friends at Ford, they said, oh, we've done the business case on that, they're not making any money on that vehicle, and we've done a structured analysis, and this is in the corporate strategy group. And I said, they're not thinking the same way you guys are. They're thinking differently. They're thinking about different types of customer segments. The demographic analyses have changed, right? And that's what we have to really consider as we sit in the roles of traditional companies, is that for us at TD Ameritrade, the Robinhoods, the Betterments, the Acorns of the world, they're not thinking in the traditional segmentation sense of, hey, I have a large, wealthy person who's going to come in with $1 million in assets. But they're thinking about, how do I acquire clients as quickly as possibly and do it at scale, because I don't know which one of them is going to turn into the next Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, right? It's the same thing with every industry that's going on, is that the traditional demographic segmentation model has gone out the window. And so we have to really begin to adapt to that. We also have a problem of linear thinking in a lot of these companies where we're worried about cannibalizing our own products. So we may have a well-established business and we say, hey, we don't want to cannibalize that business, so we don't actually make an entry into a business, right? The reality is that someone else is going to make an entry into that business. So if we don't do it at the end of the day, somebody else is. So would you rather cannibalize your own clients, or would you rather have somebody else do it? It's a fundamental thing. So we have to really get away from linear thinking within large corporations. And finally, what is driving this, which is the reduced cost of innovation? You can get anything on the cloud very quickly. You can get on demand from different groups like Top Coder, data scientists on demand. You can pretty much get everything on demand these days. Open source makes everything free, so you can get really cool software for, in a free version that you can innovate on very, very quickly. And you have do-it-yourself guides. So you put all of those ingredients in a melting pot, right? And you're a startup with, a couple of tens of $1,000s. You can do an awful lot in a very, very short period of time with that money. So why don't corporations adopt that same philosophy? Large corporations, the initial investment starts with 7 figures, right? Whereas with startups, those investments are in the tens of thousands of dollars to do something profound and meaningful. So again, that framing of who we are, where we're going, what the competition is doing, who is the competition, changes dramatically. Okay, so the 4 big technology drivers around this. So number 1, data and analytics. Everybody knows data and analytics, but nobody's doing it well. And the reason nobody's doing it well is because they're not looking at it as part of their traditional business processes, right? So nobody's understanding how data and analytics can really transform individual business units, but people are looking at it as some sort of a central shared service, or let's build a big data lake, or things like that. It has to be considered in the context of the process. Automate, automate, automate. You have to automate everything, right? So people worry about, what about these people? They need to learn new skills, all right? The world is moving faster, and we need to continue to automate. Emerging and smart interfaces. My parents use Alexa. We use Alexa, our children use Alexa. So, given these new and emerging smart interfaces, absolutely we need to embrace them. And finally, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is absolutely here, and we have to take advantage of the trends around artificial intelligence and really use it to innovate our internal businesses first, as well as we do external businesses. Green button. All right, there we go. Thank you. So just a couple more slides here is, in terms of speeding up the corporate metabolism, the things that people have to consider are these 3 things. One is, it takes way too long to design a new experience, right? So first of all, you have all these meetings and you're trying to figure out what to do with artificial intelligence or what to do with data and analytics, right? You have a problem, you have a technology, you have a new experience. We just launched trading on Facebook Messenger a couple of weeks ago, right? Somebody got out there, a couple of meetings, and really said, how do we design a new experience to launch trading on Facebook Messenger, right? A lot of people in our companies were deathly afraid of doing that, right? It was something different. It was a new kind of experience. But a bunch of people got into a room. They used design thinking to say, hey, what's that new experience going to be, and how are we going to leverage these new technologies? Rapid development, right? So if you're still in the old world of lots of requirements gathering, throw that out the window. Get everybody in a room, do a workshop, come up with a blueprint, right? Build out an agile team with a couple of developers and get it out there, right? And there's no perfection in this anymore. Good enough is enough. Focus on your minimum viable product, get it out there, get client feedback, continuous delivery, continuous innovation. Keep going, right? It's faster, just like a sprint. You got to get that corporate metabolism up and moving with more and more ideas and really bringing new ideas to market, right? Because you never know which of those seeds that you plant are going to be the next big thing. All right. Oops. All right. So beyond that, I think every company should really be thinking about how to really think about a different form of innovation, which is beyond the basics. How do you collect all of those new internal ideas from a variety of different sources within your company, right? How do you get everybody in your company to contribute? You know, we're doing an exercise right now where we have 10 different teams out there trying to figure out, you know, white space ideas in workshops and things like that. We've taken them out of their day jobs to come up with new ideas for the company. Then what's the incubation structure behind that? You know, if you've got a couple of good ideas, how do you take those ideas? How do you get them in a structure that the immune system doesn't shut those down? So that's also a really important part of it. And then how do you have both internal and external models, right? So in the future, you know, you're going to have internal ideas that you want to incubate, and then you have partnerships externally that you want to also work on to kind of create adjacencies for your business. And then the API ecosystem, which I think is one of the most important things, is how do you take your core competencies and capabilities and expose it to both developers internally as well as external developers so you can really cross-pollinate those ideas and bring them together. That's something that we've been doing really well on our advisor platform for many, many years, where we have all of our advisors and their technology partners building and co-creating on one platform called our Veo One platform. And then how do you fund this separately so that you can have separate seed funding and go down that path rather than having to be captive to the traditional infrastructure within technology? So these are really, really important things. And you know, what I wanted to do is seed the thoughts with everybody in here around how, you know, especially if you're in a larger company, how do you become that entrepreneur and what has been the ingredients for success and why it's been so important for us to really begin to go down this journey with TD Ameritrade. So thank you very much, and I think there's some time for questions.